To France, where the government is in a dispute with one of the country's biggest trade unions over labour market reforms. Scores of protesters have been blocking access to an oil depot. Workers have forced at least 5 refineries to halt or slow down their operations. And some petrol stations have begun to run dry. The unions have vowed to push on until the French president withdraws the legislation. Let's get more on this and speak to Peter Humi from Paris. Peter, so how far can this go on until the government cracks down? Will they crack down?
Well, if we take what the government has said repeatedly now over the past few days, no, they will not crack down. Both President Francois Hollande and Prime Minister Manuel Valls, who's actually winding up a tour of the Middle East at the moment, have both reiterated their determination to see through the various labour reforms. The labour reforms have been introduced, or rather forced through, without a vote in Parliament, and this has caused part of the union discontent that we're seeing at oil refineries across the country. And even though the police did lift a blockade in one of the northern refineries, right on the border with Belgium, in fact, this morning, there are now more than 4,000 gas stations that are reporting severe disruption to their supplies. They have either run out or are running extremely low, and motorists, especially in the north and the west of France, are having to travel considerable distances. Some of them actually crossing the border into Belgium and Germany, those that live in northern France, to stock up on petrol. So this particular action is beginning to bite.
Peter, can you remind us what it is about these labour reforms that they have such an issue with?
Well, the labour reforms were introduced, and as I mentioned earlier, forced through Parliament without a vote. The government using its special decree that has been around for many years in France. The idea is to make the hiring and in particular the firing of employees somewhat less bureaucratic, a little bit simpler. And to the unions, this is a massive infringement on some of the benefits and rights that have accumulated over the past 40, 50 years, certainly since the 1960s or so. And hence the strike action. The government is concerned about the rate of unemployment in France, which remains at around 10% and is particularly high amongst the younger age group, those aged under 25, where in fact the percentage rate is 25%. So the idea behind it is to lower the unemployment rate in time for next year's presidential elections. So it's partly seen as a political move as well as a economic one.
Okay, Peter, many thanks for that. Peter Humi there in Paris.